That includes the bottom 40%, right? So let's look at it for what it is. We took the bottom 40%. They're making less than $20,000 a year. Now let's just extend that up another division, or what do they call it? Standard division on our statistics. You go up to 65% are making less than $40,000 a year. Okay, that's 65%. That's almost 70%. So what does that leave? That leaves roughly, I'll round it up a little bit, that leaves 30% of people that earn any kind of income in the United States making more than $40,000 a year. But that doesn't really tell the entire story, because the cutoff point might be $40,001, right? I mean, if you made $40,001 a year, then you wouldn't be in this statistic. You'd be above it. You'd be sitting above it. So this statistic doesn't really tell the whole story. And that most people live from month to month, and they do not own their own home, and they live from month to month to keep their utility bills paid, and God forbid they have children that have to be taken care of, educated, or whatever. This is your great, wonderful United States that the Republican Party has given you over the last 40 years. And people have sat back and put up with it. And whenever Bernie Sanders quotes these numbers, which are perfectly legitimate, he's called a socialist and run out of town on a rail. KA1 Remaker Mike Friday. Anyway, okay. Other statistics that are interesting is that of the lowest number of people, that's 23. Excuse me, not the lowest. I misspoke. Of 23 million. Yeah, 23 million people that are working. Out of every 23 million people, the rich, 2,900 people, okay, you can count those people in an auditorium. 2,900 of the richest people own 63% of all the wealth in the United States. That means realty. That means infrastructure, whatever, things that are not government-owned, okay? Let's say schools are community-owned or whatever, socialistically owned. They don't own national parks, although we do know that they're trying very hard to get the national parks to close. I don't know whether or not you realize that the Republicans are trying to close all the national parks and have them privately owned. It's something that they're working on very hard to have done. Okay, so that's not a very healthy statistic, is it? That 2,900 people own more of the wealth. They own 63% of all of the wealth in the United States. 2,900 people. Well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Let me revise that. 7%. No, I misspoke. The top 7% of all U.S. households. Okay, 7%. That's less than 10 now. 7% of all U.S. households hold on to 63% of all of the wealth. 7% own, I'll say it again, 7% of all U.S. households own 63% of the wealth. This would seem to me that we're screaming for change. We're screaming for socialism. We are screaming for change. I don't know whether we got the French or the American Revolution coming again, but as long as you can keep people ignorant, as long as you can keep people quiet, as long as you can change the subject and make yourself look good like Donald Trump is trying to make himself look good, change the subject, blame all of the economic woes on Mexicans that are coming across our border. We could be a great country if we would just let Trump be president. And if people could believe that, wow. I mean, it's unreal. It's unreal what people will believe. But first of all, let me say, before I turn it back to you, the flat tax is inherently unfair. Seems because it is not a progressive way of taxing people, especially when you consider that 20% of all working people in the United States make less than $20,000 a year. Now, if two people live together, and you had a man and a woman that were working Mickey D's or whatever, they might be able to combine a household income, which is not what we're talking about. We're not talking about household income. We're talking about people, individuals making money, you know. So two low-wage earners making 20 grand a year, they combine their income and they afford a measly little efficiency apartment, and their income appears to be household-wise to be about $40,000 a year. And that's on two people working full-time, making about 20 grand or under. Now, when I say 20 grand, that's a too optimistic figure. Think about all the people that are making less than $20,000 a year. Think about where the minimum wage is sitting. Where is the minimum wage right now? Is it at $15,000 a year? I forget. I'd have to figure it out. But the minimum wage in many states, which people have to work for, if you can only find a minimum wage job, that will only guarantee you, even if you work 40 hours a week, about $15,000 a year. So, again, one wonders who is standing in the way of American socialism? Who's doing it? Why don't the little people rise up and say, we've had enough. We've had enough of the Donald Trumps. We've had enough of well, not the Kennedys, but we've had enough of the Clintons. Hillary Clinton? You think she's a socialist? She and Billy, do you think they worked for their $40 million that they took in last year? Huh? You think they did? Well, they're really hard-working people, huh? But anyway, if people would realize that if you could collectively own the country, if every citizen could get a stake in the country, in the productivity of the country, which of course they should. Why are you, Harry, as an American, any less entitled to the resources of the United States than anybody else? Why are the Trumps more entitled to it? It's because they've taken it and you haven't asked them to ever give it back. Not only have you not asked them to give it back, you're not even asking them to pay taxes on what they've got. Bernie Sanders and myself, we sort of sit back and we look and we say, oh my God, oh my God. You know, even if Bernie Sanders doesn't win as president, at least he's going to show many of the people what's really going on, if you want to open your eyes and you want to see it. And did you know that as far as cities go, the government pays pretty good wages, especially to politicians and the lobbyists and the lawyers who occupy the District of Columbia. You realize that that's the highest standard of living in the country is had by people that live in the District of Columbia. It's the highest standard of living anywhere in the country. Yeah, D.C. It's a fact. Well, look it up. Anyway, KA1FXK, K1 Lima Echo Mike.